Next thing is to ensure that necessary operating system kernel parameters are there in place. For Linux, the kernel parameters are added to sysctl.conf file. For AIX, it is those parameters are added in etc tunables next boot. For Solaris, they are added in etc system or etc project. I will ensure the operating system guide to find out what all parameters I need to add. Again, I am in the installation guide. It says edit your etc sysctl.conf file and add the bare minimum parameters. I am doing this on alpha. Towards the end of it, and I am adding those parameters here. I would add a pretty much the same section in beta as well and revise the configuration. sysctl-p is to revise the configuration. I would do the same for beta. And revise the configuration. So all the kernel parameters are there in place now. Next is to ensure that the operating system limits have been set up correctly. Limits in case of Linux are mentioned in etc security limits.conf. I am scrolling further. The limits for Oracle user. This is for number of processes, soft and hard limit. Number of files that can be opened at any given point in time, soft and hard limit, and the stack. These are nothing but the OS level restrictions for the user Oracle. Edit your file and get these parameters added. Same way, get this added in beta as well. Next is to ensure the mount point where we would be doing the installation. In our case, we would be doing the installation under U002 app grid for the grid infrastructure. And 11.2.0 software you will be installing it under U002 app Oracle product 11.2.0. In either cases, the mount point being used is U002. You need to ensure that Oracle user has proper read-write privileges on that mount point. Which I don't see it correctly being set up here. Neither I see any app folder. So I am going to create app folder and I would change the ownership on this folder to Oracle. We'll confirm it. Next is to ensure that your resolve.conf is referring to the correct DNS server. I am logging on to DNS server first. We'll copy the resolve.conf file which you have configured here. And I will replicate the same file on alpha as well as on beta. Next is to ensure that the DNS resolution is working. Also verify for the correctness of your etc host file if you haven't done this earlier. Now to make my life somewhat easier, I am going to add entry for beta here itself. Although I know that it's there in DNS, but I don't want to revisit DNS every time there is a host to IP or IP to host conversion required. So at least the public entries I have added into my host file. Let's verify whether DNS resolution is working fine. It looks fine. This is looking all good. So DNS resolutions from both the machines is working fine. One important thing that I said earlier about NTP is to validate that both the machines are showing you the same date and time. So see, for ensuring this, how I am doing it. I log into Oracle, I say date. One date output is coming from alpha, the another date commands output is coming from beta. And even split second wise also, if I see, both of them are showing me the same time. Now I didn't do any NTP setup. Then how come those machines are showing the same time? No, there is no CTSSD as of now. I haven't installed CT. Remember yesterday we clicked on VMware settings properties and we said synchronize the time with the host. That is our NTP now. So I didn't set up NTP, but I opted for some other alternate way of synchronizing the times, and correctly though it is showing that it's between alpha and beta there is no time skew. Ensure that both of them are showing the same date and time. Do a couple of NS lookup tests here. Once done, your machines are looking good for the installation. So with all aspects, we ensured that they are validated. Next thing is to start installing the clusterware software, the Oracle Grid Infrastructure software. The first question is, do I need grid infrastructure? If you need any one of them, that means you need Oracle Grid Infrastructure. If you want to implement Oracle Restart product, which is also called as OHSD, Oracle High Availability Service Daemon. If you want to implement ASM, even in a non-rack environment, then also you would need grid infrastructure. If you want to create a cluster, then also you would need grid infrastructure. So answer is very simple. If any one of them is true, that means you need grid infrastructure. So stage the software and extract the grid infrastructure software on the machine. So I am creating a directory on alpha. Remember, this software needs to be uploaded only on one machine. Installer would be invoked only on one machine. And then from the Windows machine that we have, I would connect to alpha, go to the directory stage and drag and drop the part 1, part 2 and part 3. 1, 2 and 3 .zip files. They are available on your Windows machine under C:/Oracle Software Linux. Just drag and drop them. So the software pieces are being copied now. Once they have been copied, I will start with the cluster pre-verification. So here's the flow. Stage and extract the Oracle Grid Infrastructure software. Now something that is worth noting, earlier there was a different method being followed by Oracle to distribute you the software. However, starting from 11G release 2, Oracle has changed the way they bundle the software. Earlier, to go on to 10.2.0.40, you would have installed 10.2.0.10, then apply patch set 3. That will make your version 10.2.0.40. So version 10.2.0.40 means 10G release 2 patch set 3. Starting from 11G, Oracle distributes patched installers. So to be able to go on to 11.2.0.30, you don't have to download 11.2.0.10 and then apply patch set 2 on top of it to get 11.2.0.30. Nowadays, uh, the installers themselves are called as patched installers. So you can directly download the latest version of the software and install it. There is no need for patching. For the software that we are installing, we would be installing 11.2.0.20. You can go to https updates.oracle.com/download 1009816.html is the patch number for 11.2.0.20. Log in with your Metalink credentials. So go to updates.oracle.com, download patch number.html. The patch number for 11.2.0.20 is 100988816. See here, 11.2.0.20 patch set for Oracle database server, and you see all the 7 CDs. Part 1 and part 2 are database CDs. Part 3 is the grid infrastructure. Part 7 is the Oracle deinstallation utility. Part 6 is the example CD, which was in earlier version called as a companion CD. Part 4 is client CD and part 5 is the gateways. You can obtain that information from view readme. Download it for your platform. These are the supported platforms and the operating systems. So I downloaded it, which is 100988816, and that's pretty much being copied here. See here. As of now, I am interested in CD3. That is where the grid infrastructure software is. extract the software, it will give you a folder named grid. I'm going to the grid folder. See here, switch in as Oracle, go to stage/grid where you have extracted the software. Next thing is to run the cluster verification utility, which will help you check whether all the prerequisites are there in place prior to you invoking the installer. So I'm checking it now. I said run clu vfy.sh stage hyphen pre crs-inst hyphen n sl alpha sl beta hyphen r 11gr2 hyphen verbose, redirect the output to some crs pre check.log. So you are running cluster verification utility. Stage is pre cluster installation. The node names is a comma separated list of node names, which would be your to be list of your clustered nodes. Hyphen r 11g release 2, it indicates for which version you are performing the checks. Hyphen verbose means print as detailed output as possible. And once done, I am going to quickly go through the checklist. Are all things looking good? Is there any correction required? If yes, you would do the correction and would rerun the cluster verification utility until all outstanding items are fixed. Some of the items are always going to error out because this utility was written in a very closed world, ignoring all aspects of the realistic world. So it is bound to error out at multiple places saying this check has passed, the other one has failed. If you dig through and try to find out why it has failed, probably the check does not applies to your version or flavor of operating system. So it is most exhaustive checks that are written in a very closed world. Example, on AIX it says 2 instant fixes are missing, which are patches are missing. And when I checked why it is saying that those 2 patches are missing, those patches indeed they do not apply to AIX 6.1 update 7. So it never considers all the aspects in a dynamic world. It only has a very hard coded knowledge and it verifies against that hard coded knowledge whether or not the things are present in your operating system. I am checking. It says I am checking the node reachability. Nodes are reachable. I am checking user equivalence. Looks like user equivalence has already been set up between Oracle user. Then it checks host configuration, is it consistent across node. It checks are the IP addresses configured. Most of the checks you see are being passed. It checks where can I assign the virtual IPs, which one I would be using as private, and so on and so forth. Is ASM lib configured? Do you have sufficient memory? Do you have sufficient memory on alpha and as well as on beta? Do you have sufficient swap space? Do you have sufficient temporary space? Do you have user oracles UID is same? Is Oracle a member of OInstall group on both the machines and secondarily a member of DBA group on both the machines? Is the run level correct? Do you have the necessary OS limit set? Remember sometime back we said those limits. It checks whether max user processes are 16,000, so on and so forth. Is the architecture certified? Is the kernel version certified? Are the kernel parameters there in place? Remember we have added those kernel parameters moments back. These are all kernel parameters. Then it checks are all the packages available. So all the packages are reportedly showing as passed. Wow. And at the end now it says is NTP configured. It says clock synchronization check using NTP failed. Remember, I am not using NTP. It's not mandatory. Ignore it. It checks is etc resolve.conf consistent across all the nodes. I copied it from DNS. So there is no typo. There is no inconsistency. I just did powered by Control C, driven by Control V. Copy paste. So it says at one place it seems to have failed. Checking all the nodes to make sure the entry in is found in beta. All nodes of the cluster must have the same search value. Checking DNS response time has failed. The DNS looks okay, but the response time is somewhat higher. That's why it is failing. It says your DNS response time has taken more than 15,000 milliseconds. So it asks a question, which is the node with the name, some hypothetical name. It went to the DNS. DNS performed a search and it says, I don't know which is this node. Now this whole activity has taken more than 15,000 milliseconds. That's where it is complaining. Your DNS is working, but the time it takes to respond back to my query is quite high, is why it has failed, which is okay. All other things have passed, but finally it says the setup was unsuccessful, because even if a single check fails, it will regard the whole thing as a failure. I know those are ignorable things. I will ignore them. Now my question is why it is saying that my DNS is slow. So I'm checking ns lookup it looks for a hypothetical node name and it expects a quick response from it. I'm still not getting it. So my DNS must be a slower DNS. Remember, we have implemented. So this whole thing took more than 15,000 milliseconds, is why it is erroring out. And I have mentioned in the resolve.conf that the whole thing has to be timed out within. Clear? Despite this, my DNS is slow than what is expected by Oracle. Clear? I need to check why. Here I am. Although I mentioned this hint, it is still slow. This hint, if you remember, I didn't explain in the video, right? But I added in the configuration file to overcome that message. Despite this, it says your DNS is slow. There is indeed a message available, rather a help available. I am just doing a OTN Google, which is onto the OTN forum. Let me copy this whole line. And remember from where it failed? It all passed on alpha, but from beta the names resolution was failed, or it took a little longer than expected, is what it is saying. You would see there are multiple notes how to fix this problem, and one of the notes says you put that dev null entry in your domain and it should work fine. I need to check why from beta it took such a long time. I'm counting how long it takes for me with the time command. It's still going wherever, I don't know. See, so quite understandably true, it has taken 15.012 as the real time, and that's where it is having a problem. It says it's somewhat longer than anticipated. This seems to okay to me. I'm going to ignore it. I can launch the installer now. Here I go and check whether I have a VNC. I don't have a VNC here. I'm starting a VNC. I'm launching the run installer. Remember, I'm doing the installation only from one node, alpha in our case. I don't want updates. I want to install and configure Oracle grid infrastructure for a cluster. Remember, there is also another option. Configure Oracle grid infrastructure for a standalone machine. You would be selecting this option when you are going for Oracle restart or ASM in a non-rack environment. But we are here primarily interested in rack. I want to go for an advanced installation in English language. The name of my cluster is group 00. So automatically the scan name selected would be group 00-scan.oracleexpert.com. It says tell me where would be the scan listeners listening, which port number, 1521. We are not planning to configure GNS, grid name service. We haven't even talked about it so far. So cluster name is group 00 for me. Scan name should be there in your DNS and port number is 1521. If I click next, it will validate whether really that scan information is available. So it's checking against DNS. Is this scan name published in the DNS with 3 IPs? Now it says the first node is your current node. Which are the other nodes? I said add. The name of my other node is so it asks me two things about a node. What is the name of the node and what is the virtual IP name that you have published in the DNS? See here, this was my virtual IP name. Node name -VIP. So I added both. I go to the next screen. You may want to do a validation of your SSH connectivity. Anyways, it will. So I am clicking SSH connectivity test. It says in your case it's already there. Remember, we have already established SSH user equivalence for user Oracle. After which I say next. It is now validating those IPs against my DNS configuration. It is doing SSH test. It is validating node's readiness. Oh, so it has already gone to the next screen. Intelligently, it has automatically figured out which is my public network and private network. So I said, remember while discussing we said ETH0 is going to be our public network and ETH1 would be private. It actually has, it pokes into the subnet mask. It examines what is the subnet mask and then it makes a wild guess. Oh, looking at a subnet mask 172.x.y.z looks like it is from class B. Class B is normally a larger network. Seems like it's a public network. Then it looks at the subnet mask associated with ETH1. It says looks like the subnet mask is 255.255.255.0. That means limited number of computers can be part of this subnet. Looks like this is your private network. Not always Oracle would be correct. In which case you can always change. If you think the other way around, nahi aisa nahi hai, public should be the other one and private should be the other one, then you can always change. This is my public, this is my private. If you have more than 2 NICs, then you may want to set the remaining other as do not use. Not for you. It's for somebody else, not for cluster usage. Whatever it is, I am happy with the current selection. Now it says, where do you want to keep your Oracle cluster registry? ASM or shared file system. Remember, we are doing it with AS. We are doing it with ASM this time. So we will be selecting Oracle ASM. It has automatically discovered my disks. These are those provision disks that we have created earlier. ASM disk 1, 2, 3 and 4. I am creating a disk group with the name data. Remember this. There is a purpose why I am doing it this way. Selecting the redundancy as external and selecting only the first two disks. Remaining two would be empty for our ASM practicals. So we'll be doing a ASM practical after the installation is done. That time we'll consume the remaining two disks. As of now I am only consuming the first two disks, which will be part of my disk group called as data with the redundancy style as external. External simply means not at ASM level. It may or may not be redundant at a hardware level. So it says specify the password. I mentioned welcome one. It says I'm not happy. I said I don't care. Next is it says, do you want to make use of IPMI, Intelligent Platform Management Interface? Certainly no. I will explain at a later stage why. It says, tell me who would be who. I'm making everywhere as O install. Because I remember I said I don't want to go for SOD, separation of duties. So it says, are you sure? I said yes. It says, tell me where is your Oracle base? I said my Oracle base is U002 APP Oracle. It says, where is your grid product installed? Or to be installed rather. I said install it under U002 APP grid. Remember U002 APP I have already changed ownership to Oracle user. It says here would be your inventory under U002 APP Ora inventory. It says you have done that thing but only on alpha. You didn't created the folders on beta. So let me create it. Your Ora inventory would be under U002 APP Ora inventory. This is called as the central or the global inventory, which keeps track of all the Oracle softwares installed on a given machine. It is performing the operating system checks now. It may error out for NTP again. Remember, we already done this as part of cluster pre-verification. It's again going to do it in a GUI style this time. Whatever are the failures, I am going to ignore them. It says looks like you do not have cluster verification utility disk check RPM installed. You do not seem to have ASM related devices. NTP doesn't seems to be there. Resolve.conf seems to have some problem. Remember, node resolution has taken more than 15,000 milliseconds last time. So I said, hold on, don't complain. Instead, why don't you provide me the scripts to fix this? So it says, if you want to fix all those problems, just run through this script. It has installed that missing RPM now. That RPM is the Oracle RPM. Once I have done this, I said, can you check now? It said, let me recheck again. Now most of them have gone, couple of them are still, these are the known buggers for our platform. So say ignore all and continue with the installation. It shows you a summary. Hit the install button. Now understand how it is doing it. From the installation media, that is stage grid folder, it will copy the software under the location you mentioned during the installation U002 app grid. It will do a relinking. It will change the couple of file permissions, and then once it reaches this stage, perform remote operations, it will copy that software to all remote nodes. Until then, I do not have anything under U002 app. That grid folder will be copied once everything on first node has been done with all due diligence, and later on it will start copying it to the remote nodes. Now while it is doing this, there's no point again holding this video on. Let it reach to that stage. I will again raise it. Now it has reached to a stage where it says perform remote operations. Here I am on to beta node now. You see here the folders are created. Now it's copying that software from first node to every other node. In our case, the only other node is beta. 47 MB has been copied so far. Now it has come to a stage where it says copy of the software to the remote nodes have been done. Now you should run orinst root.sh first on alpha, next on beta. And once that is done, you should run u002 app grid root.sh first on alpha, next on beta. So I am running it first on alpha as root. Next I am running it on beta as root. After which I would run root.sh first on alpha, and it's going to take some time. Now this will automatically configure your ASM instance and the ASM disk group. So it's a fairly long running process. You must observe what's happening on the screen. It says creating trace directory, local add mode, creating OCR keys for user root and privileged group root. Operation successful, OLR initialization successful. It creates valets, and for valet it also creates the keys. Remember, root.sh is a retriable script, means for some reason if it fails, you can always rerun it, unlike the previous versions of Oracle where you can run that script only once. If it fails, start afresh. Now you can retry that script. It says now adding entry to etc init tab. See here, it has added the entry for OHASD, Oracle High Availability Service Daemon. It checks whether on the given platform ASM cluster file system, ACFS, is supported or not. It says looks like your platform has a support for ACFS. ASM dynamic volume management and ACFS are found. Now it's installing ADVM and ACFS software. Then it says I am trying to start multicast DNS daemon, MDNSD. Startup succeeded. It says now I am trying to start grid plug and play daemon, GPNPD. Now it says I am trying to start aura.cssd monitor. It was successful. It says now I am starting GIP-CD, which was successful. So one after the other, it would attempt to start all the daemons. Remember, you should not run root.sh in parallel. Let it finish on first node and only then you should run it on the second node. So one after the other, it is attempting all the daemons. You can see a varying list of all those daemons being started by saying ps-ef grep d.bin. All these are Oracle daemons running from the grid home. OHHD is running, Aura agent is running, multicast DNSD daemon is running, GPNPD, CSSD monitor, GIP-CD, CSSD agent, Aura root agent, diskmon, OCSSD, OCTSSD. This is the Oracle Times Cluster Time Synchronization Service daemon. The command that it is running currently is ASMCA, ASM Configuration Assistant, silent, disk group name data, disk list, so and so. And it's configuring it with external redundancy. It has created the voting disk for you. As of now, the ASM instance is not up and running. Now you can see that the ASM instance is started in the background. Now it says successfully started aura.asm, successfully attempted aura.data.dg, which is a disk group. That's it. Configure Oracle grid infrastructure for cluster succeeded on the node alpha. Now it's time to run root.sh on beta. Now on second and subsequent node, usually it won't take much time. The first node only it takes more time because it has to create OCR, which is on a shared disk. It has to create voting disk, which is again on a shared disk. It has to configure ASM disk group and bring up the ASM. For subsequent node, much of these activities are saved. Now there's an important discussion here. I said invoke the run installer from one node, and that's what we are running. But I said apply the latest PSU bundle is often a good idea before running root.sh. Normally, your version that I am using is 11.20.20, which is at least an year old. Within that last 1 year, there must have been multiple bug fixes. Those bug fixes are bundled as PSU, that is patch set update. So what we should ideally do, my root.sh might fail because of those bugs. It's not failing because I have tested it multiple times. So in our case it doesn't fail. But on AIX I have seen a couple of failures. So because there were bugs in 11.20.20, the OS platform was not relevant in 1 year back because of the OS level updates. So what we do normally, we install the grid infrastructure software, but prior to running root.sh, you apply the latest PSU. I'm taking you to support.oracle.com. which is Oracle Metalink support. Once you are here, the search is very simple, just say PSU. And then go through Oracle recommended patches note. The latest PSU bundle for 11.20.20 version is the grid PSU patch, this one, that is 11.20.2.10, which was released couple of days back, April. Remember, it includes the quarterly CPU as well. So I am saying updates.oracle.com/download/this patch.html. This is the grid infrastructure PSU. If I go through the README, I am normally interested in bugs fixed by this patch. So it has fixed everything that was fixed until the prior grid PSU, that is 11.20.29, and in addition to that it has fixed these many errors. So these many bugs have been fixed. So ideally, prior to running root.sh, you should download this patch, apply it to the grid home by saying opatch apply, and once the patch has been applied, then run root.sh. So otherwise root.sh might encounter some bugs. But because now I have applied this patch, multiple bug fixes until April 17, whenever that PSU was released, all those bug fixes have been included in this patch. Apply that patch to grid home. Now latest artifacts are available in grid home, not the software which was released 1 year back. And then run root.sh. The likelihood of you hitting a error while running root.sh is less. Now I didn't try this because I was sure that on my platform it works. So I didn't run the patch application wizard. Here I am on to beta. It is still running. This message, however, is interesting. It says the CSS daemon was attempted in exclusive mode, but found that active CSS daemon is already running on alpha. That's why now starting it as if I want to join a cluster. That's it. And at the end, it is successful. I said okay. It does a post cluster verification, which is again likely to fail because of NTP, which you can ignore and move ahead. So it's doing a couple of activities. How do I know whether it's everything up and running now? I said grid home bin crsctl status resource -t. Wow. So some of the resources are on alpha, some of them are on beta. See scan listeners, scan virtual IPs, virtual IP of alpha, virtual IP of beta. The quickest way to find out details about your cluster are say OLS nodes -n -i. It will show you how many node cluster it is. It shows the node cluster is 2 node cluster. Alpha and beta are the 2 nodes with their virtual IPs. You can say CEMUTLO-n, which prints the name of your cluster. You can say CRSCTL query CRS software version. It prints 11.20.20. You can say CRSCTL query CRS active version. It prints you 11.20.20. That means your software version is 11G release 2 patch set 1. You can check your OCR where it is located. Your OCR is located on a ASM disk group plus data. You can check CRSCTL query CSS vote disk, which prints that your voting disk is also on a disk group name data, the first disk of that disk group. You can see now your ASM instance is running. You can say CRSCTL check CRS. It performs the health check. It says OHSD is online, CRSD is online, CSSD is online, and EVMD is online. You can also say CRSCTL check cluster. It performs checks for core CRS daemon excluding OHSD. So it says all of them are available. You can do pretty much the same thing from beta. Back to the installation, it says cluster verification utility has failed. Remember? So ignore it. Say next. It says, do you still want to continue? I said yes. That's it. So 2 node cluster is already now available to us. Next thing is to install the database software, which we'll see in the next session. But 2 node cluster is available. We'll quickly do a sanity checks. First thing, can I see those daemons? Yes, I can. I said opatch ls inventory. It says no interim patches applied. There are no interim patches applied. Here you can see it's a 2-node installation on alpha and beta. How come it knows that it's a 2-node installation? Here is my central inventory. Go to a folder called as contents XML and cat the file inventory.xml. The inventory.xml says it's a 2-node installation, which in your case I didn't see yesterday. So I am going to the local inventory now, which is in Oracle Home inventory folder. Go to contents XML, cat the file called as Oracle Home properties.xml. Here also it says it's a 2-node installation. Clear? So your grid infrastructure software is a 2-node cluster. That also you can verify using OLS nodes -n-p command. -i. You can say OIFCFG getif to find out how is the network configured. It says ETH0 is your public interface. ETH1 is your private interconnect. That is your private network, cluster interconnect. So cluster seems to be healthy. There's a very simple way to shut down the machine. You don't have to bring down anything. You just need to halt the machine. Automatically it will attempt to bring down everything on its own. So before I say halt, I'm closing it from here, here, here. I don't need this as well. I would log in, since in my case they are all virtual machines. I would log in to shut down the virtual machines into VMware vSphere client. The screen is quite interesting, the one that it says how it shuts down. Next time you bring up the cluster, everything will be automatically brought up. Remember, it comes with Oracle Restart product. So everything will be restarted automatically, which is part of your cluster bundle. Here I go to alpha. I'm opening the console. And I'm pressing shutdown. The on-screen messages are quite interesting. It says shutting down the Oracle resources. See here. So you don't have to worry about shutting them down the way we do it in a normal environment. OHSD will automatically shut them down. So it says I am stopping scan and whatnot. The scan listeners and everything will get migrated now to beta. So let's see what's there on beta now. So how many IPs do you expect on beta now to the public NIC? Public IP of beta. See here. Hold on. Public IP of beta. What is this? Scan IP number 2. What is this? Virtual IP of beta. What is this? Scan IP number 3. What is this? Virtual IP of alpha. What is this? Scan IP number 1. So how many IPs are there for to the public NIC of beta? Public IP of beta, virtual IP of beta, virtual IP of alpha, and 3 scan IPs. I am saying understand this. Where are the VIPs sitting currently? beta, beta, beta. So obviously if virtual IPs are on beta, where would be the scan listeners then? They would also be on beta then. So let's see how many listeners are there now. Scan listener 1, scan listener 2, scan listener 3 and a local listener. The local listener I said listens on public and the virtual IP address of a given node. I am saying see where is this local listener listening? What is this? Public IP of beta. What is this? Of beta. This is public IP address of beta. This is virtual IP address of beta. But if you see any of the scan listeners, where is the scan listener listening? On one of the scan IPs. So there are 3 scan IPs. That's why there are 3 scan listeners. There is one local listener that commonly listens on multiple endpoints. इसको endpoints बोला जाता है. When you see, it shows you listening endpoint summary. So there are 4 listeners, 3 of them are scan, one is local, and that the local listener is listening on the public IP address and the virtual IP address. Clear? That's it. Once I am done, I would say halt. Now you can take charge of your installation.